This is That Guy in Hutch, Jason Probst, and you're listening to That Podcast in Hutch. I have in the studio with me today three representatives from the Reno County Historical Society. Together, they operate the Strataca Museum and also the Reno County Museum. And I think this was a fascinating conversation about kind of the spectrum of work that they do in the county and on a pretty tight budget. They're supported largely by county taxpayer dollars. They get some funding from the county, and then they rely heavily on whatever grants they can secure and private donations they can secure. And they do a lot of work. And for years and years, they've been kind of the repository when people are kind of settling in a state and they have a lot of old historical information about the county. It has been very common for us to say, "Oh, we just give it to the Reno County Museum." We even did this at the Hutchinson News with our Pulitzer. There was some fear that as the corporate overlords who bought the Hutch News might melt down the Pulitzer for profit or something. We decided that the best course of action, this happened after I was there, but the people that were remaining decided the best course of action would be to make sure that it went to the museum. So for years, we've been able to trust that the museum could manage assets in the community that represented our history. But over time, their building has grown in maintenance cost, and they're at a position where they're trying to decide what to do next, whether to try to repair the building, find a different space, or even just move into the Strataca space at the salt mine. Hard decisions that they have to make, but I'm glad that they came in to visit with me about these. It's a very hard conversation to have for these guys to talk about their passion for history and what they're doing to try to preserve that history locally, but also the challenges they face as they deal with some deteriorating infrastructure, deteriorating buildings, and then always constant struggle to secure funding. So I hope you'll listen and hear what the Reno County Museum does for Reno County and what it's historically been able to do. And also we have a little bit of conversation about what it would be like if they couldn't do that anymore. And I think that's an important part of the conversation too. So join me, and hope you enjoy as much as I did visiting with the Reno County Historical Society. All right, I have in the studio with me today Rachel Woods, who's the director of Strataca, and Bronwyn Page, who's the director of the Reno County Museum, and Alan Hedrick, who's the president of the Reno County Historical Board. Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
So let's get right into it. There was some news lately that's maybe not the greatest news, but you, for several years now, have been kind of collectively facing some financial difficulties. And I think the story that we read was that you might have to make some tough decisions about what to do with the building over here across from Memorial Hall, and whether you need to merge with Strataca, whether you need to find a new place to live. But there's some real challenges with that. All those options are there, but they're not necessarily good options.
Exactly.
Can you tell me a little bit about, I guess, what you're facing and maybe how we got to this point?
Yeah, I'll start with the museum. Just one, that those buildings are over 100 years old. And last time that they've had any real actual care or attention to them was when the merger happened in 1986. Other than just a few walls that have been moved, probably within the 90s, there hasn't been a lot done to that other than upkeep. Mm-hmm. And then, we can also talk about just that the county museum has been, in my opinion, somewhat underfunded, and that can be looked at in a lot of ways. The county museum was thriving at one time, and over years, without the support from the county and the community, things start to show the 5 ways of detriment is that, your hours start to decay or start to close down, and then the staff starts to burn out, and you can start seeing that all of these things have started happening with the Reno County Museum over the years.
All of which, when that starts happening, it makes it harder to
recover.
Right?
And so I think right now we have a lot of support, but we don't have a lot of investment. And I think that's because no one wants to invest in something that has such instability at the moment.
You started out with 9 employees.
At one time, yes, I think the Reno County Museum would be. And right now we're down to currently just one part-time person. We do have another curator on the way. We're just kind of in between time right now, but that's still understaffing for what the community deserves from the Reno County Museum and what they agreed upon for wanting to have us here. So.
And it's not only,
Well, go ahead.
it's not only what the community deserves, but it's what the materials under our care deserve. We have things sitting that nobody's touched since it was donated. And they are not even officially accessioned into our collection yet because we don't have the staff that's capable of doing that.
Nor the space.
Or the space.
Or the space.
Or usable space in your
Correct,
community.
yeah.
Correct, right. I want to make sure that we explain the relationship between the three people and the three organizations. So we have the board. The board oversees both the museum and Strataca.
Correct.
It's a fascinating
Yes.
combination.
And I don't think a lot of people understand that we are basically sister museums, I would say. So we are under the same umbrella, the Reno County Historical Society. So in, I believe, 2005, a bunch of board members had a crazy idea that there could be, an underground museum and that it, would bring visitors from across the country here. And they were able to bring that crazy idea to life, which is now Strataca. It started as the Kansas Underground Salt Museum, and now we're here. And I think there was always like a dream of merging the two at some point. Just wasn't able to happen. So.
I remember when we started the process of the museum, and this is an interesting tidbit, I think. That was funded in part through a star bond.
Yes.
And I remember in some of my research, it is one of 2 or 3 star bond projects that have met the requirement of the Department of Commerce that pulls more out-of-state people into Kansas than not.
Yes.
Right.
So you're correct. So there's been 3, and 80% of our visitors come from outside the state. There's been, I think 16 actual projects. So it's crazy that only 3 have actually been successful. And it's a big deal for Hutchinson that we were the first one to be successful and are still kind of the blueprint for the Star Bond projects.
There were amendments made to the original legislation to change things so that Strataca could have a star bond. It just grew and was amenable from there. And it turned out that it was incredibly successful.
Yep. Yeah.
And then, so you have that, and then the museum, and you two work together, but you're at a different site, all governed by the same board.
Correct.
Right. So that's one thing that when they first started, so the society was the museum, and then salt being our biggest thing, why not explore the salt bit and make it larger than life? And so, but at the time they didn't think that they related enough, so that we run them separately financially, but we are governed by the same board.
Okay.
So, but as far as our relationship, we are all together as one. Yeah.
Rachel, how many people come? I think you may have said it, but tell me again how many people the Strataca pulls into town.
60,000.
And 80% of those are from out of state.
Yes. Yeah.
And you, I think before we started recording, you talked about some economic numbers. Can you Run through those again.
Yes, we drive about $5 million annually back into the community, and that's all through tourism. We're trying to up those numbers because we, have new exhibits and projects going on to, do what we can to keep driving more people to the community.
It's interesting to me, having worked there as a docent, how many people, not just from out of state, but other countries.
Yeah.
We
there's
get
nothing
people
else
from
like
all
it.
around the world.
We are the only, like-kind museum in North America. So it's a big deal. If you wanted to go somewhere else, you have to go to Austria or Romania. You're getting on a flight and traveling at least 24 hours on a plane somewhere else.
I mean, it really is a unique experience.
It
It's a
is.
unique
And
place.
that kind of brings to a point where I think, at least, I think some of us feel that maybe the county and the city kind of isn't looking towards us enough. I mean, look what Strataca does. And then if the county is really so cavalier with our history that they're at risk of us just closing down and letting it all go, and the city isn't responding to that either, that seems... It's disheartening, and I think it needs to be told, and it really needs to be shouted, and people need to listen to that this is actually very, very close to happening unless we can do something like rebranding ourselves. History across the board, it's not just our community, isn't really popular. I don't understand it, but that's just me. But if we could just try to get history exciting again, whether it's making vignettes so people can do their selfies in front of 30 turn of the century hats or something like that, displays different, but that's what we want our community to believe back into us, and we think that we can do that with Strataca and make it kind of an all one destination.
It is true. People think that history can't be fun, or people won't come out to see museums, but I think if you invest in it, it can work. The Smoky Hill Museum in Salina, they bring in 30,000 visitors annually to their museum, which is just a small community like city museum. And they're doing those kinds of numbers because the people there have invested in that. And you do have to make it more fun and interactive now, especially with the younger generation. I think they want more hands-on stuff. But it's possible. It just takes community behind you in order to do it.
It's hard to do whenever you're basically just trying to stay afloat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the whole point, is that no one can invest if the foundation isn't there. And the county made a commitment, the community asked for it, and I mean, if we maybe have to take it to a vote again, I'm not sure what we can do, but it's not us just asking for money. We're asking to save our history.
And thanks to good management, quiet, steady, good management, people may not be aware of it, but that 60,000 that Rachel was talking about has turned this destination into the biggest tourist destination in the entire state of Kansas. We have moved to the top of the list. This is where people want to come. This is what they want to see. And as a result of that, when we had the recent 50 states in 50 days program
For Good Morning America.
for Good Morning
Yeah.
America, someone said, what's the one thing in Kansas that draws the most attention? Strataca.
Really?
The underground salt mine.
Well, that's awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the city should be celebrating that,
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we're really
100%.
missing some opportunities. So, and we're trying to get our name splattered. We're all over the place, so we're starting here with you, Jason.
Yeah.
Well, talk to me about, there's a couple of things in what you all said that I kind of want to go through a little bit. Let's talk about history and what has happened over time. I think in a lot of areas, and I want to ask what you guys think has happened to make history kind of fall away from people's minds. In my view, we have a lot of things competing for people's time and attention. That I've read that we're in what they call the attention economy, where if you want to make money, you've got to capture people's attention. Why is it so hard you think, to get people to care about history?
Well, if you don't mind me telling a little story, and I don't know if this is going to be effective or not, but how we approach history. In March, I think it was, a friend of mine, a coworker out at Strataca, Aaron, and I drove up to Manhattan to visit the Flint Hills Exploration or Discovery Center, to talk to the directors there. We took the back roads because that's how you see Kansas. Mm-hmm. And I've been doing this ever since I moved here in 78. We drove through a little town that I don't even remember the name of this little town. It was small town Kansas. And Aaron looked out the window and he said, "They've got sidewalks." And I turned to him and I said, "Yeah, even little towns had sidewalks." When these little towns started out, the people that started those towns, they had hopes and dreams and desires for their little town. Mm-hmm. They had a vision of what they wanted to accomplish, and they wanted their town to grow and thrive. And so they had banks and post offices and grocery stores. They had the things that they needed, and they built sidewalks because that's what towns did. And most of the sidewalks in that little town were buried under dirt because they'd been neglected. In all the years that I've lived in Kansas, I've driven, Elmdale comes to mind. All that's left in Elmdale is the little bank building. Yep. Other towns that I don't even remember the names of, there's nothing there at all. The history is gone. Mm-hmm. The people left for economic or demographic reasons. The towns died. The history was lost. Mm-hmm. And people that drive around in Kansas, I hear them talk about that. They're sad about these things. All these little towns, maybe they grew up in them, mm-hmm. but they're sad that that history's gone. Hutchinson today may be big enough that it will survive the economic changes or the demographic changes, and it will continue. But when I moved to Kansas and I first started coming to Hutchinson, it was stagnant. Nothing had changed in a long, long time. And people were talking about that. Mm-hmm. Are we at the point where Hutchinson dies and the history dies? No. But we're at the point where the Reno County Museum's collection of history is under threat of dying. And it's our responsibility to preserve and to protect that history and move it forward. But we can't do it with a lack of funding, whether it's from the county, whether it's from the city, or wherever it's going to come from. We can't do it if the people of Reno County are not invested and concerned about their history. So one of the reasons why I approached you is that we've got to reach out to all of these folks. They've got to become involved in the preservation and the protection of their history. Mm-hmm.
And then, Bronwyn, tell me what you think. Some of the challenges that we had. The history is important, but also it seems we have a problem with trying to get people to connect with their history. Yeah.
Well, I think history's always been a struggle. I think forever, and I think also in this last few decades, I think when people started. Started long before this, but omitting certain levels of history. And then people started retelling history in different ways. Mm-hmm. Different interpretations were being told. And then people couldn't trust what they were being told. And then now we're confused. And then when you get the internet and Wikipedia is just anybody putting it up there. And so I think that there's a lot of confusion with history. There's instability. And that's unfortunate, but that's not the only reason. I think it's the way it's being told. It's boring to people. It's not exciting. We're not keeping their attention. even like when you do those scroll apps and you see that Duolingo or whatever, and it looks so exciting, I fell for it and bought the app. It's not that exciting. And I wish it was, because I thought this would be great. I'd do little classes for kids on it. But I mean, something that someone could develop something more like that. But it's that. And that's why you have to think about history in a different way. We can still tell the story, and it doesn't have to be so uptight. Facts are not important to people anymore. It's the theatrics of it. It's telling them that every movie, every story you read is inspired by history.
Yeah.
If it hadn't happened, it wouldn't be in those books or movies, games, whichever. And that is what's so beautiful, and letting people kind of fall in love with the art of history, and also the facts and the history and the science, and the fact that it lives with us every day. It never sleeps, and it's always there. The passion, I guess.
Well, and you hit on a couple other things there too. The importance of local history. It is harder when you all are charged with managing the artifacts of people's lives who live in this county and have lived in this county, who've had generations of people living in this county, and you're charged with managing those artifacts. It's harder to falsify that information. It's harder to create a narrative that just isn't true.
Absolutely.
Because you have the research and you have the artifacts. And I think that's an important thing that people forget about is that families, like someone dies in this community who was important or who'd done important work in this community. A lot of people have done important work in this community, no matter what their role is. And sometimes we don't know what to do with the stuff. Historically, that has come to you guys, right? And you're storing this, and you're going through it. You're comparing it to other artifacts from other families that exist, making sure that this is accurate and matches the other stories of the time, and creating and sometimes have created exhibits around this, right?
Yeah. Generations of Yagis have over the years, the Carey families over the years, Dillons have all over the years, different generations have donated. You can put a whole exhibit together, and we take it very personal when those things are in our possession. And we were just talking about it, like we can't. When people are like, well, can't you outsource some of this processing? We can, but when you outsource, you run the risk that someone will see a picture, and I could look at it and say, I know that that's Emerson Carey right away. It's not his regular photo, but I can tell from his glasses, his whatever. Someone in Wichita that's helping us process might just enter it into our database as man with glasses. And then therefore when someone's looking for it, we have over 200,000 artifacts and another 400,000 type of just digital copies of records and photos. You have to have it detailed in a way to find it. And if you've ever worked on Past Perfect, it's a nightmare. So
Is that the database program that you upload this stuff into?
But people always get upset when history dies and we can't get it back. They don't interact with it until that happens, and then it's like, oh my God, it's gone. We're preserving our history here, and then all of a sudden something happens, and I just learned this from Bronwyn yesterday when we had the fire right down here.
Explosion.
The gas explosion. Who do they turn to find the documents that they need to find the pipes to turn off the gas to put off the fire?
Yeah.
They come to the Reno County Historical Society because we've preserved and protected
the original
that part of
with
history.
the original integrity of it.
You all had the records of where these old brine wells had been drilled into the ground.
Yep.
I remember that.
The land surveys,
And so you had that information, and so when the emergency management people were looking for that
they went
answer,
to the courthouse, they went to several places, and
and it was you all who had it.
What happens when we shut our doors?
we saved lives, guys.
History saves lives.
Yes.
I want to talk about funding too, because that's the core of what we're talking about. I mean, the core issue here is, and the core question that's being asked of the community is is our history worth saving and preserving?
Exactly.
At the core, that's
Yes.
what we're asking.
Tell you currently, right now, what it costs per resident is under $3 to fund us at $156,000. What we're asking this year, well, what we've already asked, and the county is in their funding, and it's, if anyone would like to write in, this is the time, is $200,000, and so that's 70. So it would make it $325. I think it's a 75 cents difference per year. That's all it is to fund the museum, and just $200,000 is what it takes just to operate for just this building. And that alone will at least get us to a point where we can actually put money into our fundraising. You cannot do a successful nonprofit if you are not funded with just the basic operation cost. Because then, without that, there's no way you can invest into the fundraising or the sponsorships. And we also have to invest in our staff and having more people coming in and, really getting the job out there and getting our name back out there. So.
Yeah. Is it when you're dealing with like flat or reduced funding, it's probably hard to attract people to work also. I mean, we have to be frank about this also, right?
Well,
Yeah.
well, we can't pay anything, and we do have volunteers, and volunteers are great, but they're not there every day. And we need people for the jobs that we have. It has to be a trainable job, and so we really need someone that is committed, that has to go there. It's a type of job that has to be repetitive in order to stay kind of in the process. And then also some of the jobs that we have are clearly you have to be more professionally trained for those jobs.
Museums are fun places to work, but we can't pay museum staff what they might earn somewhere else. And I'm thinking in particular maintenance. We always need good maintenance, especially out at Strataca right now, because of the nature of being in a salt mine. Mm-hmm. An electrical guy working at Strataca is not going to make near as much in that museum as he is out there in the community. And so we might have a good guy for a little while, and then he finds out about a really good paying job somewhere else in Reno County, and we lose him. Yeah. And we have to start over again.
Well, along those lines, I think we don't get into nonprofit work and museum work to get rich.
Sure,
we do it because we believe that history matters, and what we are doing, is something that is going to be a benefit to the community. Mm-hmm. At Strataca, we employ 53 employees, which might seem like a small drop in the bucket, but all those people are there because they believe they're making a difference, and they want to see, Strataca grow. They want to make sure that our history is preserved for future generations, and that's what matters.
That feels like a significant number to me. 53 people is
pretty good size.
Hutchinson, yeah.
I was going to ask about, talk about the history component of Strataca, because it is, the entire museum is kind of on its own a history exhibit. Mm-hmm. When you go down and you see the old equipment and you talk about the operations, the mine itself is a piece of history.
It is, and we are growing on that. We've preserved the mine itself. This area that is now on display was mined out in the 40s and 50s, and for the most part, there's a lot of areas that were left exactly how the miners left it. And so those are people who, they might be your, great-grandfather, your great-uncle that worked in that area that left that impression. And now people get to go underground and see that firsthand. Mm-hmm. We have seen files where it's, people have gone through them and say, oh my goodness, that was my uncle, or that's, so-and-so that I used to know. And so that's why we do it. I think that's why it's a passion job.
So when was the Historical Society created?
Well, it was created in 1960, but established officially in 1961.
Okay.
And then the Harsha House opened officially in 1963, and that was in off of Avenue A.
Okay. How on what side of town?
West Avenue A. It was literally about a block and a half down from where the museum sits now.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
It would have been on the south side, and it was Goldie Malpin's house.
Okay. And then, how was it funded originally?
So I would have to go back, but I think it was just collectively the ladies that joined it. Their husbands donated. They went through. So they had just joined. It was mostly antiques, and so Goldie used her second half of her house, and that's where they displayed it. And then once then they sold her. Well, they sold the house to the society. She moved out, and they held that there. They overgrew. They went to Haven Township, overgrew that, and then moved here. Okay.
And then there was some movement, if my history is right in my mind, there was some movement in the 80s. Is that right? Or was it in the 90s? About there was talk about establishing a mill.
That was in 1988, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so the mill levy was established in 1988. So from the 60s to the 80s, they tried to get county funding. So like I said, I'm sure it was just through donations. But by this time, the Haven Town Hall was bursting at the seams. It was leaking. Everything was getting ruined. So they had to move here. They acquired the 2 buildings. They received funding to make the bridge to build them together. But what they were getting from local support was not going to support this larger building with the city taxes. So they had to get on the mill levy, and the town voted yes. And they voted up to a percentage of this 0.4 mill levy.
The vote authorized the county to establish up to a 0.4 mills for the purposes of supporting the Historical Society. Okay.
Yeah.
And so at that time, they awarded it at $135,000. So in 1988. And if at this time in 2026, that would be about $375,000 or so. And we're not asking for that, but
but the normal inflation, the normal rise,
that's what it would be. But it's never been even close to that. And so I don't know if the community knows that, if they really know what they are actually paying to support the museum, and how much they are paying. We do have visitors. A lot of people love that Oodleplex. We love to have the kids there, but I'm not sure if they understand why some of those toys aren't getting replaced, why they're getting worn out and broken down. We just don't have the money to replace them. And that's basically why,
You know, the Oodleplex, I think, I sometimes forget that that's part of it. It's been, my kids have not been little for a while.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, we used to take the kids there all the time because there was a free way to keep, when the weather's bad outside, there was a free place to keep your kids kind of entertained for a while. You still have that going?
We still have it going, and
Can you still rent it for birthday parties?
You can rent
the room
the conference
up there?
room up there, everything. Yeah,
I've had birthday parties up there before.
It's the best deal in town.
It really is a great deal. And you can go in there and set up, and then it's you clean up. It's not your house.
Exactly.
So when I have people at my house for birthday parties, it's very stressful. And you got to get them out. Once you get them out, you're tired. You have to clean. Then it stretches into tomorrow. None of that is good, right?
Oodleplex is the biggest attraction within the Reno County Museum.
Yeah.
It brings in the most guests on a daily, weekly, monthly basis.
And we love that, but we also want to remind everyone that we are a county museum, but unfortunately with our space, even with our building falling down, and even if we could put money back into it, we have just ran out of space.
Yeah.
And we have so much stuff, and we know our community wants to see their stuff, and we want to show it. And I feel guilty that I get to see all this amazing things, but the community can't. So we need that space so that we can build those exhibits for you, and you can come in and see what we've been collecting for all these years.
And another aspect of funding, more hits at Rachel. The city has not changed its apportionments of funding for years now. Quietly, Strataca has grown, like I said earlier, to be the #1 tourist attraction in Kansas. Yet we're still stuck with the smallest number that they gave us a long, long time ago. And I understand when I say that all of a sudden people are becoming very, very defensive of what their portion of the pie is in Reno County. But I don't think that's the right way of looking at it anymore. I've talked with Rachel about it and other folks about it. If you see your portion of the pie as set and you have to defend it, that's negative reactionary thinking. The pie will never grow. But if you start looking at other folks and figuring out how you can interact with other folks in the city and in the county, the pie grows, your portion of the pie grows.
Yeah.
That's active, proactive thinking. And I don't think we're doing enough of that in Hutchinson at this point in time. We're protecting our little piece of the pie.
Yeah, I think that's in a reductive environment or a contractive environment, particularly in an economic environment like that. I think that's the natural reaction that people have.
Yeah.
And you see that all the time.
Yeah. Well, can you imagine? So right now we're at 5% of the quarter-cent sales tax. With that, that's, we are operating on about a quarter of what a like-kind museum of our size does for like marketing. If we were to have that increase, we would be able to market nationally, because right now it's a lot of word of mouth. Most of our marketing is coming from either myself doing it or a lot of interns. And that's something I didn't mention was, we have 53 actual docents or paid staff. A small percentage of that is actual salaried employees or managers, and then interns doing the work of something that most like-kind museums would have. And we
have somebody on staff doing
yes.
that, right? So the story that I read, you guys are looking at some, I would classify as severe options.
Yes.
Can you run through those with me?
The first option is just to simply close the doors at Reno County Museum and walk away from it all. We know now, because we did a survey, how much it would cost to bring that building back up to snuff, to protect the materials inside it and the visitors that visit it. We simply will never be able to do that on our own.
What's that cost? What's the early estimates on that cost?
It's in the millions of
To bring that
dollars.
building up to
Yes,
speed.
and just to get the building up to
Code,
snuff.
and to expand on that, and even though we know we will have to spend that type of money no matter where we go, whether we buy or build, it's the space, and there's not a lot of space even to build onto here and to also have the parking that we want. So it's really just kind of that believe me, no one wants to leave these two buildings and this location. This is compared to what the city's plan is, which I believe in, is going to be gorgeous. I think that this location is a shame to have to lose, but we know what the bigger picture is, and we know that I believe our city is growing, and I think us building our society on what built this town, the Salt Carey himself, along with C.C. Hutchinson and everyone else I could talk about, but that is our name that we recognize, and that's what we're known for, is salt. And so I just think that is
a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Second option is another one that we don't really like, because unfortunately, if we were to split and allow Strataca to do Strataca's thing and Reno County Museum to do Reno County's thing, the lack of funding for Reno County tells us board folks that at some point in time, Bronwyn would have to shut her doors, and we're back to first option. She just is not getting the funding to survive on her own.
So at some point, you might one option you would have to look at is to say we're going to separate these two entities.
Exactly.
And we're going to operate independent of each other.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because
And that's not a good option either.
if you look at it, I think Strata could look at us as like holding them back somewhat, but we don't like to put that out there. Like, I mean, I hate to even throw those options out, even though they do need to be spoken because it is the truth. But that we just don't refuse to give up.
Yeah.
And that, I think, just stronger together.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Is that we are stronger together, and we have, spoke with other community members, and I think it's a concise, it's concise amongst everyone that we've spoken with that we are stronger together, that they don't want to see us split or separate, that it would be a detriment to both organizations. So, yeah.
And then what's another option? Is there one I think you'd mentioned is the possibility of moving to...
The third option, yes, is to slowly, and it will take time, move everything within the structure, current Reno County Museum structure, out to Strataca in phases. And that opens up for a whole range of possibilities that'll strengthen both museums, which have now become one once that's accomplished. And so that's where we're pouring our energy into.
And I would also say if magically a building came up, like if PRA wanted to come down to $100,000 for that building out there, that would be great. We would take that.
Which building is this? The one on Monroe?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Second and Monroe over there, yeah.
We could fill that up perfectly. So just throwing that out.
A little pricey right now for you. What happens to the building if you guys leave it?
Well, it is owned by the society. It's not county owned, and that property, so it would be up for sale.
Okay, so you guys will be selling it.
Because I'm president of the society, I'm going to say that really bugs me. For the president of the Historical Society to say that we're just going to have to walk away from a very historical building in Hutchinson and let it crumble into dust, that hurts. That's not something that we want to do. And that's the position we feel that we've been backed into.
Yeah.
And we don't like it. But we cannot currently take care of it either. So folks are going to have to figure out.
It is accurate to describe your situation as, dire. That's you guys are.
Yes.
You guys are kind of sounding the alarm that this is you're going to make these tough choices.
Exactly.
You have to.
And I think that's something that's been known for a while. And unfortunately, I just don't think anyone wanted to admit it. Our board being a volunteer board, it's a lot of pressure to put on those people. And so, but these are the decisions that have to be made. And so we have two very strong directors, and as our board grows, we have a very committed board as well. And I think we will start to get more people interested in us. There's a lot of young professionals out there. We're young professionals. Well, I'm not so young, but she is professionals, and I think that we can get people more excited about that, and that's what we want to get. We aren't here to blame anybody. We're just here to state the facts. This is where we've gotten to, and we really need everyone's support so that we just don't want to leave.
Well, I think it's an important statement that and it is. We can blame and point fingers, but the bottom line is that there's I think a lot of times we in our own lives become kind of complacent. We don't, you had mentioned it earlier, we sometimes don't appreciate things until we've lost them. You go through a town and you talk about what used to be, and I think we have that issue here in Hutchinson sometimes too. But I think it's important to say, what you're saying, what I'm hearing from you guys is that we're on the verge of losing something.
Yeah.
And we've been fighting against this, and we've been resisting the need to say that. But now it is at a point where we have to say that.
Yeah.
I'm not even a Kansan. I didn't grow up in Kansas. Obviously, Bronwyn, she knows her local history. But I'm not even a Kansan. My grandmother lived in Kansas. My mother grew up in Kansas. But me, no. And now here at 66 years of age, I'm in a position of trying to preserve and protect Kansas history, a non-Kansan. And it means a lot to me because I I have the history, I guess, bug or whatever, but I family did grow up here. It means a lot to me.
Yeah.
And so I want to do what's best for the history that I'm supposed to be shepherding for a little while.
We've talked about, like, you know, the public funding through the county and the city. Outside of that, what can individuals do in this moment?
Oh boy.
Donate,
we need volunteers.
volunteer, come out to either location and just, you know, come and visit us. That helps as well. You know, give us good reviews online. Talk to your local, like, council
That's
members.
what I was going to say. Please go online and email the county commissioners. Let them know that you are okay with them spending the county money. That line item is a very small amount in comparison to what the county has. And, you know, help us get to the point where we want to be. We want to bring those things that we can start to sustain ourselves, like giving historic tours and, you know, doing things that would do what the county wants us to. But we can't get there without that. And the county has to invest in us. And if you don't invest in our history now, we're going to pay for losing it later. So.
And we are actually, we may not be moving and merging entirely yet, but we are actually moving in the direction of trying to get a lot of artifacts into safer storage.
Okay.
And so that's going to require people. It's going to require
physically
funding.
move those things,
but yeah,
right?
it's
Yeah.
going to have to be documented and put into containers, and we're going to have to move these things into places where they're going to be safe. And it's going to take money. An archival box is $25 a box, if I remember right,
for
or more.
About that size.
For a small one.
Yeah.
And then the materials that you wrap these things in.
One sheet, like a tissue sheet, is like $2.50 a piece.
And these are probably like acid-free,
Acid-free.
all the things
Exactly.
like that, right?
All
Things
that-
that people, you don't just wrap this up in newspaper.
No,
Like, this is, I think I need to make sure people know.
No,
Like,
you do
you're
not.
not just throwing some newspaper in a
No,
bag
no.
and doing that.
No, we
There's this-
definitely follow the museum guides. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I want to ask you a question about history. You're there with the artifacts, and I don't know, do you have a story about Hutchinson's history that really stands out to you or seems to define the culture of the community? I know I'll just say this. I have used a lot of your material to write monologues for Talking Tombstones when I've done that
Oh, yeah.
before. And I've performed for them and I've written their monologues. And a lot of the history that we get for the characters has come from the Reno County Museum. And in those, I've always seen these old characters, these old settlers, you know, that have such a spirit of resilience. And I always go back to the grasshopper plague of 74. Is that right? 1874?
Yes.
Hutch was formed in 1871.
And it came right after.
It came
yeah.
right after. We're this like fledgling little prairie town getting our start and everything's looking up, and then grasshoppers wipe out everything. And then the effort that was done and the things that people used at their disposal to try to get the town stood back up after that. So that's one of the things in those monologues that has always stood out to me. It's always the grasshopper plague, the creation of the state fair. What's that?
The flood in...
Oh, and the flood.
The flood.
Those are all like defining things.
The gas explosion.
Yeah, but each of those, there's been kind of some sort of community response to say, well, we want to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Yeah. I would say the town is very resilient.
Yes.
That is one thing that this town, and they don't leave. Like I grew up here, but I left at 18, never coming back. This town is boring. I left in 97, and then I'm back. I spent 22 years in Houston, and I came back and I know a lot of people that do. And, you know, home is here, and this town has so much to offer.
That's true. I mean, you know, I wasn't born or raised here. I'm also what I like to call a transplant. I've only been here, Well, in July, it'll be 5 years. And if I'm being honest, I thought it was going to be a pit stop.
Yeah,
I was like,
people stay. Yeah.
Yes, I was thinking, like, I've always lived in a big city. And so I was like, I'm going to head out some point. But I fell in love with this place. Like, the history is so rich here, and you don't realize it. You know, Dillon's. I had no idea until I moved here and started talking to people that this is where it all started.
Yeah.
And that's so exciting. You know, Prairie Dillon's, the history behind, you know, that. It's just, there's so much that this community offers, and I don't think people realize it until, once again, you leave and then you come back, or
Or you were never here, and you come and you're like, wow, look at this place.
Yeah, the huge park at the end. You've got a creek like a river going through it, a lake that's not too far away. It's got all the elements. But yes, I remember now. But no, the town is resilient, and it has had a lot of characters. I mean, Delos Smith and his crazy characters. And then, you know, even more recent, like, this is kind of more of a personal story, but I thought it was great that my dance teacher was Kelly in Electric 2, or Break Into Electric Boogaloo. You know, that's amazing to me.
One of the biggest hits of the 1980s.
Yes. All right. When she came back from California and taught us that was amazing. So, and it just, I think one of my stories, I guess, when you asked me that, the first thing I thought of, and it's not anything that really defines us, but it kind of does, because it's something that, it's a sad story, but it's something that I see every day. It just so happens, and it's one piece that just is haunting, and that's the gun that killed Ken Kennedy, and what the freeway was named after. And it's not so much that story needs to be retold, but more so that not a lot of people know what that stretch of the freeway is named after.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think that our police and our first responders and our firemen, we have a wonderful history. We hold a lot of their history in our museum, and it's kind of those things that I would like to kind of get out and be recognized for them. But then, you know, there's just so much, and I just so happen to think of that one because it's just sitting right there. It's a piece that was on display, and we have to get it put back up. And then we also, walking by, like in our Vietnam exhibit right now, a lot of that stuff is on loan, but that is on loan of Reno County. And John Dunn, who was a soldier, and he was in a prisoner of war for 5 years. And he,
From Hutchinson.
Yeah, from Hutchinson. And he wasn't killed because he hid the fact that he was actually part of intelligence, and he played dumb the whole time. And then he actually came back. He lives in California now, and he came back, and we have his actual POW uniform on display. And those are the type of feelings, like you walk by that, you see that, you feel the history in it, and whether it's sad or it's happy. And that's the part of history that kind of captures people. And I know, like, true crime is something. Come and hear some of that. You know, if that's what gathers you or captures you, there's a lot of it. And history is sad, and it's happy, and it's ugly. But if you don't know it, then how can you learn from it and understand it?
I remember when I sat down with you when we were talking about trying to get you on the board, and we talked about the identity crisis that we think Hutchinson might be in, and I think it sort of is. Basically, it boils down, just be proud of your history, what it is. This is a salt town. It is what made us, and we see it in some of the mascot names, like the Salt Hawks at the high school and other places. The Salt City, the Carey family, these were powerful things that made Hutchinson what it was. Don't forget that, and be proud of it.
I agree with that. You know, once again, I'm a transplant here, so I don't have as much history, but it does make me sad when I hear people want to rebrand or basically forget about the history and why Reno County is here, why Hutchinson is here. You know, I grew up in Colorado, and of course we were known for the Rockies. You know, someone wouldn't come in to Colorado and say, okay, we're going to rebrand you guys, and you guys are now going to be an ocean city, even though there's no oceans around. That doesn't make sense. Like, stick true to who you are, and there's something beautiful. Yes, it's something beautiful in that. You know, don't try to rebrand yourself like
Space City.
Yes, we are the Salt City.
Yes.
You know, this, and even, you know, I love the Cosmosphere, and I love partnering with them, and I think we are even stronger together in that capacity, where people come in and they can stay for an entire weekend and go
do both things.
Yes, you know, you get to go into the earth and then into space all in one weekend. I think that's beautiful. But the Cosmosphere is here as well because of the mine, because of salt.
That created the wealth that allowed
exactly.
Yeah, the planetarium. Yeah.
If you're using
Patty
the Carey
Carey?
name, you're using the history. Be careful how you use it, and share that history and acknowledge that history for what it is.
One of the things that I think about on history all the time is that people don't realize it's history when it's being made. Right? It is really just people living their lives. And I think an important thing for people to consider in this moment is what about their lives in this moment will be worth preserving 100 years from now.
Absolutely.
And will there be a repository for that to be
Absolutely.
preserved? Because, I mean, sometimes always history is written after the fact.
Yeah.
Right?
And you want to be the one that writes it too, first of all, and be the right side of that also. But,
That'd be another conversation.
Yeah, I know.
History is written by the winners, right?
I know, right? But also,
Don't find your history on a cell phone.
Well,
You find your history out there in the community.
and a more bigger issue is that I hear a lot of parents coming in, or like my parents, or even you know, whatever, but are coming in and they try to ask their kids if they want this, and the kids don't even want it. They don't care what it was. It could have been worth something. They just don't want it. They are not a collecting generation. They are bare minimum. You know, pack a bag, get to Coachella type of thing, and so that they're just not collecting that stuff. So they'll never get to see those things.
I mean,
you
to
know?
be fair, I would go to Coachella.
Only if I got that VIP package.
There's no money in museums.
So, and it'll be sad because that stuff will be lost, and it'll be in the landfills, and it'll be amazing that, you know, valuables. I mean, people will not know what they are because no one's going to be there to let them know.
To have it, yeah. Well, I'm pulling for you all.
Well,
I hope
thank
that
you.
it works, and I
Thank you.
appreciate you coming in and talking to me about what you have going on. And tell me, before we go, for the museum, where are you located? What are your hours? When can people come down?
All right, so we're located at 100 South Walnut, right across from the Memorial Hall, and we are open Tuesday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., Saturday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m., closed Sundays and Mondays.
All right. And then how about Strataca?
Strataca, we are located at 3650 East Avenue G. We are open Tuesday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Is the last tour, but doors close at 5 p.m. Sundays from 1 to 3 for the last tour, doors close at 5. We do book up very quickly. So we do recommend, it's not required, but we do recommend it to go online at underkansas.org and book a tour there.
I've done that before. That's the easiest way to do it.
It is, yes.
It definitely is. That way you don't have to worry. You're not standing there hoping that you get the tickets to get in.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very good.
And it hurts our hearts when we have to send people away. So, make sure that you either call ahead or go online and book.
Well, thank you all for coming in. And thank you for the work you do. And thank you for protecting history.
Yeah,
Thank
For
you.
your time.
Absolutely. If you find the content that we're producing useful, helpful, compelling, interesting, entertaining, or just a good part of your day at all, please consider following us at thatguyinhutch.com or liking and reviewing us on Apple and Spotify. I want to thank a few of my friends who are really important to the podcast. Jenny Burgett designed my logo for me. My son Mitchell has written the intro music. And of course, Christopher Acker sits in the studio with me every week and makes me sound good.
A Salt City Sound production.